Over the past 100,000 years, the human skull has lost roughly 150 cubic centimeters of volume. That's not speculation. It's what fossils from the Levant and Ethiopia consistently show. Ancient specimens measure notably larger than today's average, so the headline writes itself. Our brains are actually shrinking. But here's where the real story begins. Because that missing volume might not mean what you think it means. Smaller doesn't necessarily mean worse, and the science behind this debate challenges nearly every assumption about what brain size actually tells us about the mind inside it. To establish a baseline, paleoanthropologists look back roughly 100,000 years to the late Pleistocene epoch. In the Levant, at the ancient sites of School and Kafze, fossilized skulls from early modern humans yield endocranial volumes, the internal capacity of the brain case, averaging between 1,500 and 1,554 cubic centimeters. Further south in Ethiopia, the Herto cranium, dated to around 160,000 years ago, measures approximately 1,450 cubic centimeters. Now compare those numbers to modern populations. Today, human cranial capacity spans a wide spectrum, generally ranging from 1,000 to 1,700 cubic centimeters. The global average sits between 1,300 and 1,400 cubic centimeters. When you place these two eras side by side, the gap is roughly 150 cubic centimeters. It is a measurable shift, but one that is far from a dramatic evolutionary collapse. Instead of a steep downward slide, scientists observe massive overlap. Many people alive today have larger skulls than the Pleistocene average, while many ancient specimens fall well within our modern range. Paleoanthropologist Chris Stringer urges a careful approach to these comparisons. Stringer points out that endocranial volume is merely a proxy, a rough volumetric estimate of the space inside a skull, rather than a direct measurement of active brain tissue. Reconstructing these fragile, often fragmented fossils relies on computer algorithms and CT scans. Different laboratories studying the exact same skull often arrive at different volumes. Because of these variations and the sheer diversity of human body sizes across history, comparing raw volumes across millennia is notoriously complex. The numbers tell us that a change occurred, but they do not tell us why, or what it meant for the minds inside them. The raw material itself introduces the first layer of uncertainty. Fossil skulls rarely survive intact over tens of thousands of years. Many are warped by the weight of soil, missing key fragments, or filled with mineral deposits. Reconstructing these specimens requires filling in the blanks, a process where a tiny shift in a digital model can alter the calculated volume by dozens of cubic centimeters. The fossil record also suffers from preservation bias. Large, thick-walled skulls are far more likely to survive the ages than smaller, fragile ones, naturally skewing our ancient baseline toward the upper limits. Then there is the issue of physical scale. Larger bodies require larger brains to manage basic sensory and motor functions. Because Pleistocene humans were generally more robust than modern populations, their larger skull volumes may simply reflect their larger frames. When researchers apply allometric scaling to adjust for body mass and stature, the apparent evolutionary shrinkage begins to diminish. Paleoanthropologist John Hawks points out that without correcting for these differences in body size and accounting for sexual dimorphism, since male skulls are on average larger than female skulls, direct comparisons are highly misleading. With small, uneven fossil samples, the statistical margin of error is often wider than the purported decline itself, turning a simple headline about shrinking brains into a complex question of method and measurement. If body size adjustments do not completely erase the downward trend in cranial capacity, other evolutionary forces must be at play. One prominent explanation focuses on a shift toward cooperative behavior, often described as survival of the friendliest. Primatologists Richard Wrangham and Brian Hare suggest that As human societies grew larger and more interconnected, individuals who exhibited high levels of reactive aggression were actively selected against, either through social exclusion or coordinated punishment. Over generations, this selection for greater social tolerance triggered a cascade of physical changes known as domestication syndrome. In animals like dogs, foxes, and pigs, breeding for tameness consistently yields specific anatomical side effects, including shorter muzzles, smaller teeth, and smaller brains. In humans, this self-domestication process may have softened our ancestral features, leading to a more graceful skull and a smaller, lighter brain case. Our closest living relatives provide a natural comparison. Bonobos live in peaceful, female-led groups with low rates of severe aggression compared to chimpanzees. Alongside their cooperative social structure, bonobos exhibit more juvenile facial features and smaller skulls than chimpanzees, demonstrating how social selection can directly reshape primate anatomy. Archaeological evidence from the early Holocene offers some clues. Fossil collections from this era show a decrease in skeletal trauma, alongside the appearance of more complex, cooperative burial sites. These patterns suggest that human groups were indeed becoming more peaceful and socially integrated. Yet, physical anthropologists caution that these archaeological signals are suggestive rather than decisive. A healed bone or a communal grave cannot prove that selection against aggression was the primary driver of our changing skulls. It remains an intriguing framework, connecting behavior and anatomy, but one that is still waiting for definitive proof. The human brain is an incredibly hungry organ. While it accounts for only about 2% of our body weight, it consumes nearly 20% of our daily energy. This high metabolic cost means that our evolutionary history is tightly bound to a strict energy budget. Under the classic expensive tissue framework, any shift in diet, body mass, or lifestyle forces a biological trade-off. Maintaining a massive brain requires massive caloric intake. If our ancestors found ways to achieve the same cognitive results with less fuel, selection would heavily favor a more streamlined, energy-efficient design. This perspective shifts the focus from sheer skull volume to the actual computing units inside.